Good morning and welcome to the Norfolk Day Business Summit, brought to you by Lloyds Banking Group. We're here today at the Norwich International Aviation Academy on the very first Norfolk Day. So whatever you're doing on Norfolk Day, I hope it's been good so far, even if there has just been a cup of tea or some coffee so far. At the moment I've not had a cup of coffee, but I'm not going to complain, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on. We're going to be talking today from the Aviation Academy, because the people who are training here at the moment and will be training here in the future will be moving on soon to academies and careers both here in Norwich and Norfolk and all over the world. But what we're looking at is how we spread the word, whether that's nationally or internationally, about why Norfolk and Norwich is such a good place to do business, and maybe shoot down a few of those cliches and perceptions on the way, because we are going to desperately try and make today a cliche-free zone. I need some kind of buzzer, which they haven't provided me with. But let's meet the panellists first. Let's start on my left. Air Marshal Sir Christopher Harper, who's the chairman of the East Region Advisory Board for the Aviation Skills Partnership, which runs the Aviation Academy, and the former commander of RAF Coltishall. I apologise for reading your title off my clipboard, but it is quite a long title, more of a ruler than a business card. So Chris, we'll start with you. For you, what has made Norfolk the right place for this Aviation Academy?
Well, Norfolk has such a rich aviation heritage, Neil. The very first metal aeroplane in the world was built by Bolton and Paul here in Norwich. This airport, this international airport at Norfolk Now, was the site where the Mosquito flew its first operational bombing raid. RAF Coltishall, which I used to command, was a Battle of Britain station. Douglas Bader served at RAF Coltishall, and there are a huge number of very famous Royal Air Force pilots who went through the gates of that wonderful station while it was up and running. More recently, the F-35 Lightning, the Royal Air Force's brand new aircraft, unbelievably high technology, world-beating stealth fighter, has been delivered to RAF Marham, just down the road, here in Norfolk. So what I'm really trying to describe is that aviation has an incredible heritage here in Norfolk. And the International Aviation Academy that we've founded here is going to make huge steps in putting aviation and aerospace in the United Kingdom back on the world map.
Thank you, Sir Chris. Well, just a little bit of housekeeping as well today. We do have an audience here at the Academy. They'll be putting some questions to the panel later on. And of course, if you've got any questions watching on Twitter, do send them in as well, and we'll get through as many as we possibly can. Next, we'll go to Gareth Oakley, who's the East of England Ambassador at Lloyds Banking Group, who are sponsoring today, of course. And he's also the Managing Director of Business Banking. Gareth, good morning. What do you think Norfolk, and why do you think Norfolk is such a good place to do business?
I think Norfolk has tremendous potential. Innovation in advanced manufacturing, creatives, digital development, and modern industries like life sciences and biotech, and this, I think, bodes really well for the region and Norfolk particularly, because these are the industries of the future.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Gareth. Nova Fairbank over here on my left, who's the Public Affairs Manager at the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce, an organisation which aims to be a voice of, what, nearly 1,000 members, I believe it is?
And rising.
And rising. For you, what is Norfolk's greatest strength?
Norfolk's greatest strength is its business community. There's 33,000 businesses in Norfolk. They're innovative, they're dynamic, and they're absolutely pushing forwards for economic growth of our region. That's the lifeblood. They're diverse, so it really makes a difference to how we move forward.
Nova, thank you. We'll go to Simon Coward next on my right. He's the Managing Director at Hethel Innovation. They run both, of course, the Hethel Engineering Centre and the former RAF Coltishall, now Scotto Enterprise Park, of course. Simon, good morning. Your highlights of doing business in Norfolk?
I think we've got real strengths in engineering manufacturing. It's our third biggest sector. It's got breadth, it's got depth, and it's got huge potential. So it's a place where you can bring your business and it will grow.
We'll go to Jeanette Wheeler next, who's partner at law firm Burkitt's and a board member at the New Anglia LEP. Jeanette, for you, what makes Norfolk such, I guess, a special place to do business?
I think there's numerous things. We've talked about some of the key sectors, and we'll talk a lot more about some of the exciting sectors and things that are happening here. But there's also a really great collaboration going on. You talked about the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership, Chamber of Commerce, very, very active organisations. There's a real strong private and public effort to really ensure that business grows here.
Okay, and finally we'll go to Marcus Hemsley, who's the co-director of the Fountain Partnership, who's a Norwich-based digital marketing agency, which last year won a global award from Global for the quality of its campaigns, which is always nice to hear in someone's introduction. Marcus, why did you personally choose to do business in Norfolk? Because you're not originally from here.
No, so I'm from Kent originally, but I went to the University of East Anglia, and I knew I was good at marketing, but when I set up my business with my friends, we're all quite young and actually quite frankly terrified, not sure exactly how to scale up a business. And one of the amazing things about Norfolk is the community here. The business owners met us and would actually give their time to mentor, to show us how to do it. And I was saying to some of these guys beforehand, I grew up in Kent and they got a bit of a London attitude in Kent, I'm all right, Jack, go to London, make your own money. And I just think, had we tried to set up shop in Kent, we would have struggled a lot more. So the foundations were really laid because of the community here in Norfolk.
I'll put that out to all of you, to be honest. Anecdotally, do you hear a lot about that community? Do you hear of people saying they maybe wouldn't have had such success if it hadn't been for that initial period of collaboration and help from other successful businesses?
Well, I was commander at RAF Colchester, which had around it the most unbelievably vibrant community of support. When I talked to my fellow station commanders around the United Kingdom, a lot of them had flying complaints every day, and it wasn't a happy relationship. I never felt that way at RAF Colchester. It was a big family, and Norfolk, Norwich embraced the 1,200 personnel and their families that I had working there in the most unbelievably generous method. I think Norfolk stands out on its own for having old-fashioned values. They care about people, they care about community, and want to see people succeed in whatever life they're in.
We're certainly well connected. I think that's the thing. Everyone is very, very well connected in the business community and in the public and private sector.
So I'd support that as well. I look after businesses right the way across the country and deal with politicians and LEPs right the way across the country. And I think this region does have a good reputation for collaboration. We have a really good performing LEP, a strong chamber of commerce, and actually county councils which seem to be able to work together. So there's real potential in that collaboration.
And Simon, I would say with new places like the new Scotto Enterprise Park, lots of new businesses arriving in a similar time. Have you noticed that there? A lot of collaboration and help, I suppose, even if the businesses aren't necessarily obviously related.
Yes, I think there's a real community. If you look at Scotto and that surrounding area, it may seem disconnected. It's a beautiful part of the world, but today it's employing over 500 people and 120 businesses there. So that community keeps reinventing itself and identifying new opportunities. So yeah, a true collaborative community.
Okay, well, one thing I think we've all touched on so far has been perception. And this is something in any kind of debate about Norfolk business and the business community is the outside perception of the county. So let's understand what we're actually dealing with. What is the perception of Norfolk at the moment? Let's not pull any punches. It's very easy to, again, as I go into cliche. But Nova, when you're travelling, going to other business organisations around the country, what do you hear? And also, second part of that question, how do you shoot them down afterwards?
You hear that we've got the Norfolk Broads, isn't it lovely? Great countryside, big skies, hard to get to, little out of the way, sleepy little backwater. Reality?
That's a long-suffering face, I see. So how do you hit them with the reality?
The reality is we have world-leading businesses. We're leading in agri-tech, crop sciences. We are all over the world. You've got Fountain that's out there working with Google very closely. You've got lots of other businesses that are doing that. We have a complete wow factor here in Norfolk. Today, as Norfolk Day, the Chamber is doing 15-second beers. It's all about the wow factor. It's getting those businesses that are brilliant and doing amazing things to actually tell the rest of the world what they're doing. We're very good at hiding our light. We need to be much more proactive in promoting a positive message. Norfolk is open for business, and wow, look at the businesses here.
And I say Alan Partridge knows nothing.
Absolutely
he really is one of my least favourite people. But, when you talk about the wow factor around
It's
the
impressive.
world,
We've got 9 minutes into this, and that's the first partridge mentioned. So we've done it. We've ticked that off. We'll
Let's
move on.
move
We'll
on.
move
Absolutely,
on.
our
absolutely.
heads, yes.
You know, around the world, there are organisations that are desperately trying to bring together that sort of cluster of university, research park, and you know, a leading health institution. We've got that. The UEA and the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital and the Norwich Research Park. What a fantastic cluster and a world-leading one. We've got all sorts of things like that. We are an absolute jewel that's just not spoken about as much as it really should be.
Well,
Just look at this. Look at this. A World War II aircraft hangar that's been converted to a groundbreaking international aviation academy. Nowhere else in the world do you have somewhere where you can gain a degree and a practical qualification coterminously.
So Chris, that was something I was going to ask,
fantastic.
really. The fact that when the decision was made, we're going to turn this old hangar, I think there had been a window company in here before, it had been...
Take your word for it.
I think it was, I might be wrong, I'm trying to remember back. When that decision was made, this is what we're going to put here. I remember seeing the amazing first images about what this place was going to be like. Were there any eyebrows raised saying, why put this in Norwich?
Well, there were. And, you know, it goes back to those opening comments of mine. People didn't remember, realise, or appreciate, if you like, the incredible aviation heritage that Norfolk has. But it's there and it's real. And frankly, a lot of what we're talking about here is about communication.
Exactly.
We don't really powerfully press the Norfolk message, and yet we can be a world-leading, world-beating community.
So if there was an eyebrow raised when you were talking to people about this and talking about the amazing things that were going to be happening here, what did you say to those people? How did you talk them round?
Well, it's simple, really. If you have a good idea, you have the location, you have the heritage, and you have the drive and the support of incredible organisations like the UEA, Norfolk City College, the County Council. Everybody came together in that classic Norfolk community way to say, a good idea with a good heritage to back it up, let's make it work. And that power, that drive, that dynamism, actually now, in a very short period of time, has generated this incredible facility that we're sitting in.
I think as a county, it would be harsh to describe it as an image problem, I suppose, but I guess the roots of it are there. For you, Gareth, you're obviously dealing with businesses all over the east of England. For the ones you're dealing with in Norfolk, is it an image problem that you hear from them, or?
So I don't think businesses that are in Norwich are necessarily worrying too much about an image problem, but I think for the local economy more broadly, I do think that is something that we need to collectively address. So all of the perceptions that we've already spoken about, I think, do exist, whether we like them or not. So events like Norfolk Day, this type of thing, I think are absolutely critical to changing that perception.
Well, you say we need to address them. I'll throw this out to everyone. How do we go about doing that? How do we address that situation? You say whether we like it or not, some of those perceptions are there.
I think we just need to change the narrative. You know, my marketing hat on, it's all about the stories we tell and what other people tell. And it's interesting, we do incredible things, but we don't create enough content and put it out there in the wider world. You know, where's most people's attention at the minute, right now? Well, it's in front of a screen, isn't it? Right, they're probably looking on YouTube or Google or LinkedIn or whatever. And it's interesting, there's an incredible event I went to, I was one of the speakers there, called Inspiring Females at the Open, 4-day event. People flew from around the world to inspire 400 Norfolk schoolgirls. And I said to Siobhan, who runs it, I said, it's brilliant, where can I watch the footage and share it with people? And she's like, oh, it's not being recorded. It wasn't being live streamed, and I'm sure Siobhan won't mind me saying this because they're going to do it next year, but there's not a YouTube channel with it in there.
Wow.
And that's the thing, we're doing such incredible things. It's not being recorded. I mean, this is great, it is. But how many brilliant conversations have we all been part of that aren't being recorded, aren't putting on YouTube, and they're dying as soon as the minute passes, you know?
And I'd like to just add on that one, though, that the LEP is trying to correct that, and I know some of the councils are. There's lots of work starting to happen to make sure that we do promote ourselves much more effectively, and certainly the LEP's looking at an East brand that already exists and to actually make something of that, a bit of a campaign, because we really need to do that.
But let's be positive here. There has been progress made. If we look back 5, 10 years, what progress has there been so far? It can be very easy for us to sit here and say there are problems, there are things that people might not understand outside. How far have we come on that journey in turning around the image?
It's starting to happen, we are starting to have a much more positive message. The big one is the collaboration and the partnership work that everybody's doing. If you do it on your own, you're a single lone voice. If you all shout together, it's a loud voice. We need to be consistent with our messages, we need to be positive with our messages, but equally we need to start innovating how we get those messages across. Marcus is absolutely right. You need to be using the modern ways of communication. The new generations that are coming through, which are the people we are trying to attract into the county, aren't reading newspapers or looking at adverts on posters and billboards. They're looking at their screens, they're looking at social media, they're looking at the various different media channels. The way media reacts now is completely different to how it was. We need to take advantage of those kind of avenues.
Okay, well, Marcus, obviously as a digital business,
Yes.
does it really matter where you are in the country?
It does for well-being, and I like living here. But at the same time, actually, in fairness, we have an incredible creative and marketing and digital sector. So, you know, it was actually quite competitive. And, you know, going down to London, first we had a bit of imposter syndrome going, well, the London agency is going to be good. And actually, there was so much work in London, they were quite average, to be honest. And I keep saying it to local businesses, get on the train, get down to London, start actually selling into there, because actually, by going out there, we can compete and actually show how good we are. So it doesn't really matter where you are, to be honest. We have clients around the world, you know, but to be honest, Norfolk's great because we're hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from London, half an hour from Schiphol. We're doing stuff in Amsterdam with some Dutch companies. It's like getting a bus into the city. That plane journey is brilliant.
But do you know, there is one thing that we do need to concentrate on here in Norfolk, and that is east-west connectivity.
That's a fair point.
London's a hub for the United Kingdom, and quite rightly so, for many, many reasons. But actually, from Norwich, we need to be able to access Birmingham, Manchester, Edinburgh, far more readily than we do at the moment. And the east-west connectivity out of the county is not particularly great. As just been said, down to London, new rolling stock, soon's going to be an hour, 40-minute train journey from Norwich. The dual carriageway, the whole way from Norwich to London, fantastic. So that north-south connectivity, fantastic. East-west, could do with some work.
I'm sure there's some people sitting at home watching this on Twitter who will be watching this back later on today, will be sitting there thinking, well, not enough's being done. Progress isn't quick enough. What would you say to them?
I'd say we have a plan, Stan.
Okay.
So last year the LEP consulted widely across all the business community, across public sector, and we have an economic strategy. And that strategy looks forward to 2036. So it's not a short-term fix. It was very, very widely consulted. It's there in black and white and in print and so on, and it's really ambitious, and I think we can be pleased, and everyone has fed into that, and it really focuses on key themes, key clusters, key sectors, and we'll build on that over the coming years.
What's more, that economic strategy isn't just the LEP delivering it or the public sector delivering it, it's us as a business community delivering it. Over 1,000 businesses inputted into that strategy. It's all of our strategy. We have to, as a region, work together. So it's every single individual business feeding into that strategy, and it's covering all the key areas that's going to make the economy grow and make Norfolk a fantastic place.
Well, let's go to Twitter, because we've got our first questions coming in now. If you do have more, do send them in. We'll get through as many as we possibly can within this sort of half an hour, 45 minutes. First one's from Alistair. Good morning, Alistair. Put to the panel, what do you think the biggest opportunities are for businesses in Norfolk when it comes to growing? I'll open that up. Who fancies taking that one? What are the biggest opportunities for businesses in Norfolk when it comes to growing?
It's going to be probably in the tech and digital sector, to be honest, in terms of sort of low cost to entry, setting up a tech business. There's some great accelerators that are setting up. And to be honest, a lot of the skills that you need, you can learn online. I was saying to some of you guys beforehand, you can't go to UEA and do a decent course in digital marketing because it changes every 6 months. But actually anyone in Norfolk right now in their bedroom can go online, do a Udemy course, go onto YouTube, like anything they want to do. But it's going to be tech-based, of course. So I think the biggest sector in growth is going to be in tech, and anyone can do it as long as you've got internet connection, which we now have in Norfolk.
There's also, I mean, you can't, we haven't got anyone here from the universities, but UEA is a hub, is an incubator already for some very, very exciting technologies and some businesses that are going to come out of that. Newer is doing great things on sort of graphic design and a whole range of other things. So there is some really exciting things happening that we're just on the verge of seeing really take off.
There's also the offer to the world, export. We have some brilliant businesses offering brilliant services and products. Get it out there. Norfolk is not just your only market. The UK is not your only market. Have a look at the rest of the world.
So let's be practical.
Can I just add one little thing? There is grant funding from the LEP for businesses wanting to grow as well, so you will get financial help as well.
Well, let's break some of those down there. We started off about maybe starting up in tech, for example. Gareth, if someone was coming to you advice who was looking to dip their toe and push on in that sort of sector, what advice or guidance would you be looking to give them?
Well, I think actually the advice that you give any startup is it's very similar. So a good business plan is absolutely essential, but also using the resources around you. So you find that particularly for startup businesses, if they are investing in their own kind of personal development and they're prepared to collaborate with businesses and stakeholders around them, they're more likely to be successful. And then I think they need to be ambitious in terms of the marketplace. So as we've already said, exporting I think is a really underdeveloped area in Norfolk, but also around the rest of the UK. We see that businesses that are prepared to export generally are more successful on average. But a lot of businesses are nervous about doing that. So finding out about those markets and what's actually available to those businesses obviously just increases the chances of success.
Let's look at exporting now. Nova, I know there is help out there. What kind of help is there? Because it might be a completely different language in more ways than one. I said this would be a cliche-free zone. I apologise, but what sort of help is there available?
The DIT is doing a huge amount of work to promote British business, Norfolk included. The Chamber has an international department, so we are looking at helping people to export in terms of documentation and running the likes of country events to identify what possible markets there might be out there, cultures, the do's and don'ts, how to approach companies. You've got lots of opportunities in terms of trade missions, so lots of the local authorities will look to work together with the business community to promote a trade mission. There's one happening at the moment out to the Netherlands. We're looking at going to Horkava, which is a big food exhibition. The energy sector has absolutely nailed promoting themselves to a wider market. They're going to lots of different exhibitions all over the world.
And finally, one thing you mentioned, Jeanette, was about grant funding.
Yeah.
If someone is watching interested in that, what's the best way for them to push on with that sort of thing?
Go online, look at the growth hubs, the New Anglia Local Enterprise growth hubs, as well as Chamber of Commerce. I couldn't speak more highly of the Chamber as well. But the growth hubs will then link you into the Growing Business Fund panel grant funding scheme and the small business grants as well that are available. It's matched funding, up to 20% in some cases, and it's money for growth, capital growth. So it's very valuable, it's there, and I would encourage people to have a look.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about diversity as well.
Okay.
Certainly a place like this really encourages people from all backgrounds, from wherever they come from throughout the country as well as the county, to come and learn skills about aviation. We're going to have another one of these academies, hopefully quite close to this one, that deals with aerospace, and that'll link tech, aircraft design, and all of the avionics aspects into that. Then maybe an aviation hub out at RAF Marham as well, or another academy out there. Anybody can come to these places. There is funding. This is not just the purview of slightly wealthy middle-class people to get into industries and a sector like this. Anybody can come and play if they have the drive to do so.
And Simon, did you want to jump on before we move on?
I think just to add, it's really important to get connected, so to reach out. Go to the business centres, the incubators that are around Norfolk. So they're in Great Yarmouth, they're in Norwich, they're at Hethel. That's a place to connect with, because you get then into a support network, you get into a community within which you can start to grow. You can always grow better together than on your own.
Okay, we'll move on to something else. We are on the, you are watching the Norfolk Day Business Summit, sponsored by Lloyds Banking Group here at the International Aviation Academy, Norwich. We are going to move on now to, I guess it's been roughly titled, The New Norfolk. We're looking ahead. What do we want to be famous for in 20 years? When we're meeting people outside of the region, instead of just bringing up the Broads or Partridge or insurance or whatever Norfolk is famous for at the moment, what do we want to be famous for in 20 years? I'll start with you, Jeanette. Something you mentioned a moment ago about the region's economic strategy. What kind of conclusions did we reach about what the future should be and where we should be pushing the county in the next couple of decades?
Yeah, well, we talked a lot about it already. You know, we have some of these key sort of sectors, key clusters. We've got energy that's still growing. In terms of the energy, something like we have the biggest wind farms on the planet just outside of, on our coastline. Nowhere else in the world, but outside of Norfolk. So I think actually we're going to be known as having some leading sectors and sort of building on the academy theme and skills as well coming into that. We are very focused on that. The West Suffolk College of Engineering and Technology Centre will soon be built and be available. And we're also pitching to government for an Eastern Institute of Technology. So we really are gearing up to do some really good stuff and give opportunities for learning and skills to really come into this region and this county. So I think we're going to be known for an awful lot more by 2026 or 36.
Well, obviously you're widely consulted, but one thing I do want to ask is if you are at home or watching on your phone or your tablet on Twitter at the moment, if you do have questions, particularly opinions on this, what do you want Norfolk to be famous for in 20 years? Do send them in. They'll pop up on the screen in front of me and I'll put them to the panel as well. Novi, just wanted to jump in there?
Yes, I think we need to be known for buzzwords: leading, innovative, cutting edge, inclusive. All of those should be words that are associated with Norfolk and being here.
Because we were talking about, say, insurance being something that people jump to when they think about Norfolk business. You were talking a lot about the more high-tech businesses. Is that something you think there'll be a lot more of in this part of the world?
To echo what Nova just said, I think disruption, innovation, I think that's where it's going to be. And actually, we're already doing a lot of that already. And, you know, last century or century before, we disrupted the insurance industry. You know, I think Barclays Bank, sorry, Lloyds, but Barclays Bank started off here, didn't they? It's good. So, disruption right the way through, and I think it's that narrative. And I think also we need to create that among our own people. You know, a lot of people use cliches like normal for Norfolk, but I wonder if Archant every day had a bit about how people from Norfolk are changing the world. Every day in the EDP, hammering that message. I feel like going, actually, yeah, we are a community of disruptors, of innovators, of people that are doing things differently. And if we change that narrative with examples constantly and then communicate that to the wider world.
Well, I guess the key point, though, is why Norfolk would be a good place to go and disrupt, to go and do things differently. Why would we be a good place to do that?
I think it goes back to the thing I originally said about the community. Like, we all care about each other. This isn't everyone out for themselves. This is a solid community, a family sense, but then also everyone sharing best practice. I think the only thing we actually need a bit more of it is that core ambition of, well, why can't we be? Exactly, it's that aspiration, but that comes from us. Filtering it down to the younger people. I mean, people say, people laugh and say, well, why are you based in Norwich? I was like, I don't really care. I'm too busy trying to disrupt the digital marketing industry. I'm going out there and I'm going up against the biggest people in Silicon Valley because I want to take them on.
And after work, you can pop to the beach. So
precisely.
Tough days.
Today in Silicon Valley, in fairness.
Yeah.
But do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's just this, almost just. Let's not talk about the cliches and negative things of Norfolk and just focus on greatness.
No, Simon,
I think building on what we have. I mean, Scotto Enterprise Park builds on that heritage of RAF Caldershore. Hethel Engineering Centre builds upon another RAF base. So in the past they were RAF bases, but today we've reinvented and we've created those places where within those clusters we've got amazing world leading edge businesses in simulators, in agri-tech, all kinds of spaces. So it's a place where you build on what we had and what we have and grow it into new stuff.
Definitely.
And talk about it as well. Sitting on the Growing Business Fund panel, which that considers grant applications, I am amazed month after month at the incredible businesses that come through and go, really? They do that? It's unique, it's novel, it's innovative, and it's in Norfolk? Fantastic. There are lots of jewels out there. We don't shout about them. We will start to do that more and more, I think. But we do have some incredible businesses already.
And Gareth, is that something you see when you're out working with different businesses? How have you seen the development over the last few years, and where do you see it going?
So, I mean, we've already talked a lot about the development that we're seeing. We're seeing this sort of move to innovation, and that is definitely where it's going. And I would encourage businesses to look at that and to move towards that with absolute pace. If we're thinking about 20 years from now, I think the only thing that I would add to what's already been said is that for me, retention and attraction of talent is absolutely essential. So I think it's probably the Achilles heel, partly related to the lack of infrastructure and the communications links. If that can be improved, then you have a great package, because you have opportunity and you have quality of life. So in 20 years' time, that's where I think we should be heading.
And Gareth, that leads us on absolutely perfectly to where I wanted to go next. I'm not sure if you can see my notes over my shoulder there. And that is moving on to things like skills, infrastructure, productivity, innovation. I know at every single one of these business forums I go to, you might hear the same things about the A47, about the rail system, infrastructure, internet. We could talk about those for another, well, Norfolk Day will be done by the time we've covered all those off. But what do we need to do to get to that future? We'll stick with the thread you brought up there about talent and infrastructure. Now, I know, Marcus, you were talking to me earlier about one thing you do to get talent in to Norfolk, about finding the right people. It was really interesting how you actually go out particularly looking for certain types of people to get them to come home, if you will.
Yeah, so obviously we're digital marketeers, right? So we use Facebook. Facebook, you can target people by location, by schools they went to. So we target people who went to school in Norwich, who are now working in London, who are in their 30s with children who work in digital marketing. We put ads in front of them saying, is Norfolk calling you home? We actually did it around Christmas as well, because that's when they're going to spend more time on Facebook. You know, they're home with the family going, oh, I should be back here, shouldn't I? And we can offer them, you know, London salaries, London-style clients, and we start getting applications. And in fairness, throughout the year, we also get recruiters to headhunt people who've got that link. We were talking about that before, Jeanette, that link back to Norfolk, so we don't have to try and sell in the place they've never been before, but actually just come back. You can actually achieve all of your career aspirations and more by coming back to Norfolk now, because it's changed.
When people come here, if they've never been to Norfolk before, they are bowled over. They love it. They think this is a superb place to live and work. Yeah. And we just have to make sure that people come here. And with the aviation academies and the other sort of tech colleges that we're building, all those things will bring people here. We've got the university. We know that graduates like to stay, or they go and they come back again. So, and I think we are a net, I think, importer of young people in this county. People do come here. We are getting the skills and talent, and at least more than our fair share, I think. And I'd say on the infrastructure, I think we've come a long way already. You know, the dualling of the A11, there are plans for the A47 and so on. So I think some of the problems that we're perceived to have had in the past, we are certainly addressing.
There's also the element of, to attract that outside workforce, we have to be promoting the positive messages about the region. Show them what's brilliant, show them what we've got, show them what life could look like. If we constantly dwell on the negative, you're not going to get them to come. We've also got to look at it in terms of, it's not just that senior manager that's coming, it's their whole family. So the first thing that family does is get on the websites, and if all they can find is a pretty Norfolk Broads, but it appears to be quite remote and inaccessible, it's giving them the wrong message. Why would we want to move there? We need to be showing them that we've got the retail, we've got the shopping, we've got the entertainment, we've got all of the activities across the county, as well as that dynamic business community.
And schools, apparently one of the top hits when people look up Norfolk and Norwich is on Mumsnet.
Yeah.
It's the number one on most searches. Mumsnet comes up first when you Google Norfolk.
Really? I did not know. Well, so Chris, if I come to you, we are here at the International Aviation Academy. This site set up partly to fill a skills gap. I guess that is part of this. What more can we do to make sure industries like this get the skills they need? Is it coming up with places like this to fill those gaps?
Well, you're quite right about the skills gap. There's going to be something in the area of 600,000 people short in the global aviation sector in the next 10 years. That's pilots, it's engineers, it's air traffic controllers, it's people who run airfields, people who run flight operation centres, and people who crew aircraft. There's also an incredible shortage of systems engineers and design engineers. So the aviation and aerospace sector really does transcend a huge number of opportunities for young people. And I think the visionary...
down to young people actually being smart enough to go, look, I want to get a career that's going to look after me for a big chunk of my working life. Do I need to actually go about targeting those areas like somewhere here?
Well, absolutely. It really does. I mean, I think the government STEM initiative is something that is driving forward exactly the right sort of aspiration in young people. And then facilities like this and the other ones that we're going to build in the county and beyond will provide that opportunity. And to go back to the earlier part of the conversation, what I would like Norfolk to be known for is the county with the greatest opportunity for the people who go through it. If they stay, fantastic, because we can continue to grow locally with that amazing community spirit that people have already talked about. But if they go away and enhance the United Kingdom's economy, and indeed the global economy more widely, then that's positive too. Bet you, though, that they'll want to come back.
As you've mentioned, Gareth, when you're talking with businesses, though, what challenges do you hear from them about skill shortages and finding the right people? Is that something that comes up regularly?
Yeah, it's a common theme, and it's, if you speak to the LEPs right the way around the country, it's generally a number one focus for a lot of them, including in Anglia. There's a lot I think that business can do to help with that. So it's the partnership with education. So quite often we don't see that working in unison. So universities and schools thinking about more skills-based education and career paths rather than just academia. Academia is absolutely important. Apprenticeships, I'm a huge fan of apprenticeship schemes, and we use those heavily in Lloyds, and I quite often find that a lot of our most successful talent comes through that route. So a combination of collaboration with the universities and schools and businesses putting back into the community, I think is absolutely essential.
Is there enough aspiration from young people at the moment? From the people are hearing from businesses, from business owners, do the young people of our area appreciate the levels of opportunity that are actually here for them at the moment, or is that something that's passing them by?
Not always. If you look at what is happening within the curriculum, the education system, it needs to have a much greater emphasis on enterprise. The students need to understand why they're doing these qualifications. You're not doing them just so you know it, you do it because you need to apply it in various different industries. We need to create a stronger link as to what the opportunities are for learning trigonometry, for doing sciences. They all have practical applications out in the real world. At the end of the day, you go to school to prepare you for the world of work. If we don't articulate what that world of work looks like and the skills they need to enter it and be successful, then why are they doing those exams?
And I think that's really, really important. It comes back to this image problem as well, or this image challenge that we have. So much of what young people do is influenced by their parents and their families. And I'm always shocked when I talk to parents, and I'm a parent myself of 7-year-old twins, but I talk to my parent peer group, and they've never heard of the Aviation Academy. They've never heard of CFAS. They have no idea what's going on in the energy sector. And that's locally. So we do have to get the message out there that there are some really great career opportunities for our young people, and parents should be encouraged to make sure that they're driving them to look into those things. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity.
The trouble is our young people's attention is on particular social media websites in front of screens, and we're talking on Twitter, of Arch, and this is the truth. There's a complete mismatch of where their attention is and where an older generation's attention is, and to an extent we are letting them down. We're preparing them for a world that doesn't exist anymore.
Is there an air of complacency, I guess? Simon, I'll go to you with this. We're talking about all of these wonderful things that we need to change. Can we, as a business community, be complacent, assuming that everyone's going to follow? Because it's very easy to have these conversations at a certain level of management and business and these forums. Is there a complacency that isn't actually going to filter down to the coalface of people who are trying to get through running their business this week?
Yeah, I think we need to challenge ourselves at all levels. I think we're going to have to challenge ourselves because of the up-and-coming whole space around Brexit. I mean, if you come back to this skills space, there's going to be a real need, I think, to help our youngsters, our students today. They are the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, and so we need to be helping them today to give them those skills to be able to set up businesses and actually think about, I could set up a business when I leave school. I could have that aspiration. And how do we as business leaders actually work with schools through the Enterprise Advisors Network, through these various initiatives and frameworks to encourage those youngsters to come through, but also to think about, we've got to be more productive, we've got to be more competitive. So how do we do that? How do we reach out and look for ways to be more innovative, to find that new product, that new process, so that we can increase and remain competitive? We can't be complacent. If you stand still, you go backwards.
Is the risk everyone knows about the quality of life within Norfolk. It is good. People come here and they often stay here for the quality of life. Is there a risk of people coming here, setting up a business and frankly becoming too comfortable? They are enjoying their life and they're not feeling pushed like they would say if they were in London or another big city where they know, say, they've got another agency or another similar business down the road who's pushing them every inch of the way. Is that something that could maybe be, is that something you've come across?
It depends on what success looks like for them. Some people are lifestyle entrepreneurs. They want to work 3 days a week and take home £5,000 a month. Cool. You can set up a business that will do that. But there are those who actually want to take market share and dominate nationally and globally. It depends on your hunger and ambition. But I completely agree with what you're saying about going into schools and saying that message. Because speaking to young people, they're like, oh, I need to get a job. Well, actually, a lot of you, there won't be jobs for a lot of you guys with automation. You need to be actually self-employed, contractors, small business owners. You know, this isn't the 20th century. You're not going to get a job for life and a pension at 65 anymore. And we're not telling them that message. We're not equipping them with the mindset of, right, I want to be an entrepreneur, what do I do? And if we start doing that in Norfolk, we'll create the opportunities that you were talking about.
If I can nail you down on something there, who isn't providing that message? It's very easy to say we, as a large collective. Who isn't providing that message?
Well, the business community, really. And also, I think the country, I think, you know, globally, we're not speaking, you know, the world's moving on so quickly, and to be honest, me wanting to be an entrepreneur came from the internet, of watching Americans on YouTube saying, you know what, you can be a millionaire by 30 if you like. No one told me that in England. Well, guess what? I started to believe it and started working towards it. And that's the thing, by telling people that message, so God bless America, I suppose. The Americans are much more gun-ho about it. But if we took a little bit of that, just not as cheesy and annoying, and filtered that into Norfolk, we'd be, you know, moving a lot quicker, I think.
Mark has talked a lot about disruption, and positive disruption is such a powerful force. People talk about jobs and work. Actually, what about the fun that you have while you're doing some of the things that we all do on a day-to-day basis? I've always loved flying. I want to be involved in it forever, quite frankly. And I don't think about going to work when I'm doing things that are to do with aviation or aerospace. This is, how do I make it fun, not only for me, but for the next generation that's going to join as well.
Okay, well,
I think as well, necessity is the master of invention. We all know that. And with all the different challenges that are undoubtedly coming our way with Brexit, with millennials and so on, and in particular with Brexit, we know that there's going to be a less easy stream of international talent that we can just simply, as employers, say, right, well, I'll go to Eastern Europe and I can get, you know, 20 digital engineers or whatever it is. You're not going to be able to do that so easily. So in actual fact, businesses are going to have to wake up anyway and say, we're going to have to grow our own, we're going to have to inspire and get involved, and I think that will happen.
Well, we're going to go to our audience in a moment. If they've got any burning questions to get through, there will be a microphone in the audience shortly. But we were talking about millennials. We've mentioned them. We've also mentioned Brexit for the first time in 45 minutes. I think we did quite well to make it through that far. What challenges are presented by a new generation coming through when it's very easy to tar the millennial generation negatively, but for all of you who've been working with younger people and the businesses who've been working with this new generation, what kind of challenges are there that we're seeing?
Challenge you to think differently.
So it's a positive challenge?
It's a positive challenge. They're coming up and going, why do you do it that way? You can do it quicker that way. You're instantly increasing your productivity if you're taking on board somebody's ideas. And the next generation have got some amazing ideas. We just need to give them the opportunities to shine.
There's definite agreement there from Sir Chris. What sort of things have you been seeing and hearing from the people coming through these doors?
I must say, if this aviation academy had been around when I was a teenager, it's exactly the sort of place I would have wanted to go. I was going to go to Southampton University to do engineering, but right at the last moment, I changed and joined the Air Force straight away, learned to fly, and eventually did a master's degree later on in my RAF career. You come to a place like this where you do a degree at the same time as getting a practical qualification, whether it's in flying, i.e. a pilot's license, or an engineering license, or an air traffic control qualification. These things put learning and practical application hand in glove with each other, and that in itself is positive disruption and a most fantastic opportunity that I think appeals to today's young generation.
Okay, well, let's go to our audience now, who've been sitting there very patiently. I'm Very much hoping they have burning questions they want to get forward. First of all, if you can just say who you are, where you're from, and who your question's for. If, any hands up if there's any burning questions anyone's wanting to put to us. One in particular I'd be keen to know about: what would make the biggest positive difference and impact to your business? Any questions from our audience this morning, please? And if everyone could not be shy, that would really help me.
Neil,
Okay.
perhaps I can kick us off with one. Mark Shields, business editor of the EDP. I just wanted to come back. We've talked a lot about the future and about aspiration and how we prepare young people for the careers that we hope will exist in 10, 15, 20 years' time. It strikes me that the way we try to prepare young people is to leave it to the schools, and in a way we're asking teachers who perhaps don't have the first-hand experience of the kind of jobs that might exist to prepare young people for jobs which don't yet exist. So whose responsibility does the panel feel that is to make sure we have the skills of the future?
Want me to pick that one up?
Yeah.
It's everybody's. It has to come from the business community working with the education establishments, as well as the universities and the colleges, and all of us looking at this. These are the options, raising the aspirations right from primary school level. You can't start it at sort of 14, 15. It needs to be started at 5 or 6. You've got to give them the opportunities to understand what's out there already and what the potential might be. You're quite right, there's lots of jobs that the primary school currently, what they're being trained for doesn't exist yet. So it's working together, all aspects, particularly sort of the tech side of things. That's going to be huge. It impacts right across all of the sectors, from aviation to manufacturing to engineering to energy. All of them need the tech sector. How do we push that forward, and how do we communicate that through to students? It is working together.
I think also each of us needs to just play our part. So if you can take on a student on a work experience placement, you're having an impact. If you can go into your local school and do a careers talk, get to know some of the teachers, just play your part within it. For myself, I take on work experience students. Every week I offer a placement. I look to find and work with schools that really want to engage in my space of engineering and just try and impart some of what's going on in the world of business.
I think it's about partnerships. It's about partnerships. It's about organisations like this one, which partners with the local community, with the local council, with the LEP, with the UEA. We're trying to reach out so that aviation and aerospace pathways are understood by 6-year-olds in schools, all the way up to 18. So it's not a surprise that there's an aviation academy and shortly to be an aerospace academy here in Norfolk. They know it's there. If they're excited by that career path, they'll know exactly what they've got to do to bring their career aspirations to fruition.
I think a big thing is encouraging that self-reliance. You know, when I was speaking at Inspiring Females, it was just saying, look guys, what do you want? What does success look like for you? Right, it's on you to go and achieve it. And I went through a whole grid of things that might stop you. I don't have the time, I don't have the knowledge. I kept going back to them, open up your phone, open YouTube, type in how you want to get there. Find a mentor. Mentoring's huge. Find someone who's done it. Go and ask them. You know, I mentor 2 or 3 people. Everyone's playing their part. But unless we get these young people to really take ownership, rather than expect it to be given to them, then they're never going to come forward in the way that we need them to deal with the challenges of an automated 21st century.
So I think there are 2 things which businesses probably need to do better than they currently do. The first one is to invest the appropriate amount of time in talent spotting. So some of the examples that have been given here are absolutely fantastic. So you've got to be proactive. The days are gone where you can just put an advert out and then just expect a queue at your door of the right type of people with the right types of skills. So investing, being really proactive in terms of talent spotting is absolutely essential. And then really being able to get into the mindset of the person that is now looking for a career. So when I started my career, I don't think my mindset wasn't a million miles away from that of my father's when he started his, but someone in their early 20s, late teens today thinks completely differently. So as businesses, we need to understand that and make ourselves more attractive. Otherwise, that talent just gets attracted to what are perceived to be the interesting industries where actually there's tons of opportunity in places like advanced manufacturing and so on and so forth.
I don't think we should be frightened of millennials. I mean, lots is spoken about millennials as if they're some new species, and I've done quite a lot of work. You know, upward mentoring, I would really recommend that. Lots of upward mentoring. People get new ideas, they understand what's wanted, and I think so. Embrace the millennial and listen to them. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing, I think one thing that we're not so good, and I would make a plea for business in Norfolk, is to do more development and training with your existing staff. Some companies are fantastic at taking on apprentices, but it's not just apprentices that need training. We need to have lifelong training. Everyone can develop their skills, new skills, and as you say, we're never going to create a bunch of ready-made new workers for, you know, when they come out from school. Up to the age of 16, you're just kind of getting the basics. From there, the responsibilities on business and everybody else to really pitch in to help create the next lot, you know, talent pipeline for the future. So business, please get stuck in and pay for courses and use the apprenticeship levy and all the other opportunities that are out there to really train your staff up.
Well, if we just return to the audience, if we can, we had a further question from the gentleman in the red tie on the front. If we can get a microphone across, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Pat Fenn. I'm a director at Haas Automation in Norwich. I'd like to pick up on...
Just speak up slightly for us.
Mic's not working.
Haas Automation in Norwich. Name is Pat Fenn. And I had a question on something that Simon said earlier on, that there are something like 120 businesses at the Scotto Business Park. I didn't know that. I knew there was work going on there. I had no idea that there were that many there. I have no idea what they do either. And I don't know how that message would get out. I tend not to read newspapers. I'll look at the screen, I'll look at newsfeed, media, all the other digital marketing methods that we have. And I actually didn't know that. I live locally. I know about RF Cultural. I'd never heard that fact about Scotto. The second part of my point is that we are here in Norwich as the national centre of CNC machine tools. We supply to educational environments, universities, colleges, mainstream businesses, multinationals, small businesses, small SMEs all over the country, and Norwich is the headquarters. So things like the Scotto Business Park and the Hethel Centre, which I am aware of, they're interesting to me, they're interesting to us as a company to make sure that people know that we are here and that we know that other people are here as well.
Well, so I guess to push that on into a question, Simon, how can we better publicise some of the good things that are going on at places like Scotto Enterprise Park?
I think for me, a lot of this comes through being ambitious and sharing our ambitions and where we're trying to go. Hethel Engineering Centre has been a great success. It's been an ambition. It started from a very small acorn, and it's really growing. Scotto Enterprise Park is really just getting started, but we've got to have those ambitions. We've got to think big in order to kind of hit a UK stage and a world stage. And a company like Haas has that world presence, but that Norwich local headquarters, and it's getting that balance, I think, is really important. But we've just got to keep doing more and more and more to get that message out.
Simon, thank you. We've got a question from the gentleman in the second row. If we can get a microphone to him. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Nice and loudly so we can hear you at the front.
Good morning, Steve Elson from Lloyds. I'm interested to hear from the panel as to what you think are the key ingredients in making Norfolk a truly global brand.
I'll open that up to anyone who wants to take it. How do we what are the key ingredients of turning Norfolk into a global brand?
I think we have to build on what we've already got. We've got some great successes. So we do know that we've got this world-class, world-leading research park, bioscience, agri-tech, all the clusters, all the sectors that we've spoken about. They're already fantastic. They are already global, but we can push them much, much further.
I think how we market is everything, right? I mean, this conversation is brilliant. It's being live streamed. Yeah. Is it being recorded? Are we going to pay for advertising to get it in front of people for the next year? And I think going back to the last gentleman's point, we keep having little campaigns, and with the world-class Normal for Norfolk campaign, but it shouldn't be a campaign. It should be a way of life. Every day we're telling the story and getting out there, not just, oh, we should do a campaign once every couple of years or have a couple of little bits here. It's every day getting out there and actually just leveraging the tech. It is, as a digital marketer, it's intensely cheap to advertise on YouTube and LinkedIn and get in front of the people. Because that's all that matters. It's the people whose opinions you care about. Well, where's their attention? It's in front of a screen. Are we in front of them right now? No. Okay, let's get in front of them and start telling the story. Because like I say, we've got this great thing going on and we're telling ourselves, but there's a whole world out there that we can reach in seconds.
It's the ongoing positive message as well. It is reinforcing that message. You've got lots of people that are going overseas and meeting overseas clients. Why aren't they telling them how brilliant Norfolk is? We've got a load of ambassadors already. We need to push that ambassador message further and promote a positive message and highlight what Norfolk's capable of.
Be confident. Be confident in what we've got. Constantly smash the cliches that so readily exist around the place and work all the while on connectivity.
Yeah.
I'll just summarise that. It isn't just the positive message, it's actually the delivery of that message as well, because if you haven't got the delivery, you may as well have not made the message in the first place. Are there any further questions from the audience? Lady on the back row, if we can get a microphone to her. Thank you. Nice and loud so we can hear you at the front, please.
Hello, I'm Rachel Waring from Waring's Furniture, and we are manufacturers.
A little bit louder.
Can't hear me?
The mic's not working, we can't hear you, sorry.
A little bit better.
Okay, I'll try and shout.
Thank you.
I'm Rachel Waring of Waring's Furniture. We are manufacturers, and not just in Norfolk, but throughout the whole country. All the media, all you hear is, oh, there is no manufacturing in the UK. And I just want to promote the fact that there is manufacturing in the UK. The reason we look as if there is no manufacturing is because our services are so enormous. It means that 20% of our economy is only manufacturing. If it wasn't for us being so successful globally in the services, we would be a large manufacturing country. It's just that by comparison to the services, it makes us look small. And I don't think there's enough focus given on the manufacturing organisations. And I'll give an example. I went to school locally. When I was at school, the careers advice was not ambitious at all. It was visiting the local sweet factory. You know, I was going to work on a factory line. That was what the ambition given to me. I've recently got involved with the alumni of the school I went to. When they asked for past students to come back to talk about possible careers, there was nothing that I could contribute that they were asking about, because they just wanted people who worked in animal and veterinary care. Presumably there's lots of children that like, petting little animals. Or are you interested do you work in plumbing or social care? There's just no ambition in the schools as to what is actually the wide range of careers there is. So there is an issue in the schools in the careers that are being promoted to children, and not all children have parents that are able to advise them of the wide breadth of things that are out there. So they weren't interested in me talking about entrepreneurialism or anything that's in my career background. I employ over 120 people. There's plenty I could have given. They were not interested in me coming in and talking to the students, and that is a big issue. So I agree with the gentleman from Archant. The schooling and careers advice is a big problem, and we would prefer to promote from within Norfolk and not have those on minimum wage jobs and be bringing in from other counties other people. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, if I can boil that down into two sections. First of all, looking at, say, the manufacturing sector, we've spoken a lot about more modern industries, agri-tech, high-tech, online, but we haven't spoken much about manufacturing, for which I apologise on behalf of the panel. What more can we do as a county to tell people about the manufacturing industries we have here? I guess, Simon, you're looking like you wanted to jump in. There we go.
I think I completely agree, and I think first of all, it is the third biggest sector in Norfolk. 10% of the workforce are in engineering manufacturing. In the UK, that's 8%. So Norfolk may not be known for engineering manufacturing, but we've got real strengths in it. But I think it's looking at the future. So today we're in transport, energy. The future is low carbon vehicles. The future is clean energy. The future is advanced materials. The future is environmental technologies. The future is clean technology. And I think if we can inspire our youngsters to look at future careers, building on fundamentally the same strengths, which is you need to be doing your apprenticeships, your degrees in engineering and manufacturing. But the opportunities are huge. And it's getting across to today's workforce, which is in our schools, of the opportunities that are out there. It's picking up on the point that in Scotto, 70% of the businesses are in engineering and manufacturing. So that we've got a real strength there, and we can build on it, and we are building on it.
And I'll just jump to the second part of your point there, if I can fashion that into some form of question. I hope I quote you correctly, I suppose, in terms of how we can get out and inspire people to be ambitious when it comes to careers so that they might not even know exist. How, I'll put this open to all of you, I'm not frankly sure which one of you individually to put it to. How can we really inspire people to go for these higher level jobs instead of looking at the entry, with the greatest respect, the lower end of maybe the pay scales? How can we push people to be ambitious?
Some of it's going to come back down to raising the aspirations in the schools. It's business community, it's the manufacturing. Simon, you're doing brilliant in it. Offering that work experience, that taster of what does this job look like. It's also communicating to the students what the different options are. If you want to be an engineer, here's where you need to focus. If you want to be an artist, here's where you need to focus. Did you know you can do this in high-tech business? It's giving them the opportunities. A lot of them don't know. They know how to be a fireman, how to be a pop star, how to be a doctor, how to be an architect, how to be a vet. They're all the traditional industries, and that's what the schools fall back on. And that is down to the business community getting into the school going, do you know there are all these other options? Can we come and talk to your students?
Do you know, just a month ago, in this incredible building, I came in and there were 200 children aged between about 6 and 9, building robots, building unmanned aerial vehicles, designing aeroplanes of the future, because the STEM program had brought them in. It was part of the RAF 100th anniversary outreach program to teach children about aviation and aerospace. This isn't unique. There are other spaces in Norfolk where that sort of activity could take place for all of the sectors that have been discussed today. And it's really, really important to fire up the energy in young people so that they realise there's nothing they can't do and no blocks that would stop them doing it.
Well, that's a very positive place to finish that section on. If I can move on, because we are nearly out of time. And thank you to the audience as well for their questions too. I'm going to put you all on the spot slightly with a final action point for everyone who's watching this either live or watching this back later on today on the Eastern Daily Press website. In say 15 seconds, anyone watching this, what should they go away and do differently? If you're working in a business, if you're working at the moment and need to think about how to change your outlook, what should people go away and do differently? And Gareth, I will start with you, I'm afraid. What would you do? In 15 seconds, what would your message be?
There are 3 things. So businesses should be focused on continuous improvement. So how can they be better every single day? I think they need to be proactive in terms of getting the message out, and they need to collaborate right the way across not just their own sector, but actually across the whole community.
Simon?
Wherever your business is, identify the schools that are around you and go and talk to them. Knock on their door. Try and find out how to get in and build a relationship with the local primary school, with the local high school, and find a way to be able to get in and engage with students and fire them up to consider working in your business.
Just in 15 seconds.
I'd say engage with the business community, collaborate and train, and I think very much promote. I mean, what we've talked about a lot is there's so much that really great stuff. And for me, the message has come loud and clear that we need to make sure that we know what our narrative is, we do, and we need to make sure it's out there, particularly in a digital footprint.
Delivered. 15 seconds if you could, sir.
If you're young, go find a mentor, someone who's living a life that you would like. If you're older, go and mentor. And both of you create content, get a selfie stick and just keep talking at the phone, sending your message out there and creating value.
Over.
Stop apologising, aim high, be positive.
So Chris.
Believe that any opportunity out there is an achievable one. And absolutely, we must all stress inclusivity for the future.
Okay, well, I think we'll leave that there. We have run over time, but everyone's been having such a nice conversation. It seemed a good time to carry on things. So thanks everyone for your questions from the audience, for everyone from home who sent messages on Twitter. We got through as many of those as we possibly could. I want to say thank you to all the panellists for their giving up their time this morning. Thank you to our audience as well for chipping in with their questions. I want to thank Lloyds Banking Group for partnering with us to make this event possible, and everyone here at the International Aviation Academy here in Norwich. Don't forget, you can see on the Eastern Daily Press website today, you can watch back any of this that you missed or any of it you want to catch up on as well, of part of this morning's discussion. And of course, next Wednesday's business supplement as well. So thanks ever so much for your time this morning. And whatever you're doing, have a very good first Norfolk Day.